Monthly meeting of the Board of Waterworks Trustees. It's April 27th. Board members, we have, why don't we just go?
Okay. And Dave Carlson.
Diane Moines.
Andrea Bolton.
And on the phone we have,
Gillette's on the phone.
okay.
Good.
All right. So we'll get going then under the decision agenda, item 1, consent agenda. We have the minutes from July 23rd, the minutes from August of the trustees meeting, minutes August 6th from the planning committee meeting, minutes August 6th from the customer relations committee meeting, and minutes August 13th from the finance and audit committee meeting. Does anybody want to pull anything out, make any kind of corrections? If not, we'll vote on that as a block. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 1B, financial.
Graham, you're voting yes?
Uh-oh.
Correct.
Also under the consent agenda, financial statements, list of payments, summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $20,000 and the date of the next meeting. Ted, do you have anything to say about any of those items?
Nothing unless there are questions.
Okay. I don't think we need to vote.
I think we probably covered that, did we not?
Well, I took the intent of the prior motion to cover the entire consent agenda.
Okay. I think if anybody has anything different. Public comment hearing period. Is anyone here that would like to be heard from? Seeing no one, we'll move on from that to the action items. Request authorization to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations for Lower Oak and Highland Park Sewer Separation Phase 3. Ted?
Yes, Diane, we do quite a number of projects with the city of Des Moines every year. We do a number of smaller projects that typically don't come through the board process because of the dollar amount involved. And we, as you're all aware, do a few that are larger projects, and we bring those to the board to approve reimbursing the city typically in advance of the construction. This project is a little different than both of those options. This is actually a project that started out small, $75,000 being small. It didn't initially come to the board, but then during the construction, a couple of other things came up, another fairly significant alteration on this city project. Also a section where the city was going to put in some permeable pavement and a gravel underbase right on top of the water main. And during construction, it was determined that we probably didn't want to leave our 1923 water main under that structure. So that main was replaced as well. The result is that ultimately the total was more than $100,000. So we're bringing it to the board now for approval to reimburse the city. Important to recognize in this case, the work is actually done. We're just asking for your approval to reimburse the city for the work that has been done under their sewer separation contract.
So is that total up 165?
That's correct, $165,000. It started as about $75,000 worth of work, several small alterations, and then two things were added. A $10,000 item, as I recall, and the water main replacement was about $80,000. So the total is $165,000.
So this is just done at cost plus.
You know, they would have had bid items in the contract, David, and I think
Okay, there were light bids and they just multiplied them.
that's right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to authorize staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations for the Lower Oak and Highland Park sewer separation phase 3 process.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we authorize the staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 2 is conveyance of water mains at the airport property.
This is an item that we did discuss at the August 6th Planning Committee meeting. Mike gave us a nice presentation, shared some history about these water mains in and around the airport property that are still public water mains, even though they are on the airport's private property. There's several segments there, I think a total of 7, including a couple that are on the guard base, and then 5, which we're gonna talk about today, that are on the airport property, not on the guard base. A number of reasons why we would like to convey ownership of these water mains to the airport. At one time, they were in either public right-of-way or areas that were easily accessible by our staff for maintenance and repair and locates and all of the things that we do. Today, as the airport complex has expanded, some of these are literally behind secure fences. We can't get in there. There's some potential liability if we would have a break and we couldn't get to it. They all are serving what we would consider to be very airport-centric functions today, which years ago they were serving a variety of customers. But it just makes sense for the airport to own these and have that responsibility. Staff has wanted that to happen for many years, but for various reasons, the airport wasn't prepared to accept that ownership. But now, through diligent efforts by Michael Kernan and his folks up in engineering, we've gotten to the point where, subject to the conveyance agreements that are attached here, the airport is willing to take ownership of those. We will help with some continued locating services for a period of time until they can find a contractor to do that, but then we'll have things kind of squared off. So if they own what serves them on their property and we own what is a public space.
Questions?
And we were,
Oh, go ahead.
we were gonna continue to see if the guard base route, but that's a longer battle, right?
That's gonna take some more time and some more discussions with them, but, we will continue to endeavor there. We're meeting with them on the 12th of September to really revisit the entire situation, some other issues. So we'll keep knocking on their door.
When we agreed to do locating services, what is the period of time?
What we're looking at right now, and this, what we're asking you to approve today is to approve the conveyance contingent upon us executing this mutually agreeable transfer agreement with the airport authority. Right now, what's in that draft document is we give them 5 years to install either 2 or 4 check valves, and we would continue to locate for a period of 1 year. We feel like we've got good agreement on that, but we need to execute that agreement in parallel with this. But that's what's in there now. We would do it for 1 year
Okay.
and help them acquire a third-party provider.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, would failure to come to agreement on those terms do anything to this conveyance? I mean, if we convey now and you can't come to terms on that, what's that gonna mean?
I feel like, and I can certainly be redirected here, I feel like we can sign the conveyance. They also have to sign it as well. So this will not be executed without multiple signatures. And their signature on the conveyance documents would not happen until we had, again, mutual agreement on this, what are we calling it? Transfer agreement.
Can I have a motion to approve the conveyance of the water mains at the airport property? This is 5 segments contingent upon execution of mutually agreeable conditions of transfer, and authorize myself and the CEO and general manager to execute the conveyance of the water main.
So,
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
aye.
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 Thank you. The next item is the City of Pleasant Hill easement for Youngstown Trail Phase 2.
City of Pleasant Hill is building a bicycle trail that will cross a corner of our property where our joint east side booster station is located. And they would like us to give them an easement for that bicycle trail. In addition to an additional temporary easement that will allow them some room to construct that bicycle trail. As I think we've discussed before, we consider bicycle trails to be good neighbors. They're easy to work with, easy to manage, can be somewhat protective. We don't have any issue with granting this easement to the City of Pleasant Hill for the bicycle trail across the frontage of our property. And it is just across the frontage of about half of that property at an angle. We would recommend that the board approve that. First step in that process would be to hold a public hearing.
So I would like to open for comments from the public, a hearing regarding the granting of easements to the City of Pleasant Hill for the Youngstown Trail Phase 2 on Des Moines Water Works property. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to that? Seeing no one, we'll close the hearing. Need a motion to authorize the execution of documents to grant the easement for construction of a bicycle trail.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions? I'm sorry if I rushed through that about this. All right, it's been moved and seconded that we grant the easements for construction of the bicycle trail. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We'll take that as a-
The last item is authorization, or is regionalization discussion, as we have been doing in the past. We have continued to have this on our agenda so that we can get updates and status on what's going on with those discussions. I will put before the group the proposal for a closed session. Section 388.9, parent 1 of the Code of Iowa allows a closed session to discuss marketing and pricing strategies and proprietary information that may impact the competitive position by public disclosure not required of potential or actual competitors related to ongoing negotiations over creating an integrated regional water authority. Each of these topics should be discussed in closed session to avoid disclosure likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the Des Moines Water Works. Something I get a motion for.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second that we go into, closed session to discuss regionalization. All in favor, say,
Usually do a roll call on that.
oh, a roll call, okay.
Dave Carlson,
Yes.
Diane Munns,
Yes.
Andrew Bolton,
Yes.
Graham Gillette.
Yes.
Okay, so now we need to clear the room of those who are not authorized to be included in the close. We are on agenda item 4, information items. Ted, do you have any reports? I guess we can take, or anybody need to make any reports from the board committee meetings? I think that, we've all been attending a lot of all of those,
Yeah.
so.
At the planning committee meeting, we talked about the conveyance of the water mains, which was on the agenda here today, and memorials for Bill. At the finance and audit committee meeting, we had a report from Raptellus, and we talked a little bit about system development fees incoming. Customer relations was a closed session. I don't know if there are any updates from the Botanical Center or the Park Foundation.
Andre, I don't think for,
Well, I was gonna say, I guess we could talk about the Park Foundation. Sam sent out an email, Carol sent out an email this afternoon with showing some updates of that connector.
okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah, which Ted has photos
Got
here
some
of.
pictures
Great.
that I can show.
The underpass?
I saw him putting it in.
Yeah. So that's exciting. Also exciting, I think everybody's seen the email about their Labor Day celebration, kind of a kickoff to officially, and one of the kickoffs to officially announce the opening of the park and get the public to experience everything there. I don't know if this would be an appropriate time to give an update on the conversation we had about Bill's memorial with the foundation, but essentially it was positive, and they were saw it as an opportunity to honor him and move forward with the second phase of the project. And if there's any other details staff wants to share about the Park Foundation and things that they're working on?
Michael, anything you want to share from a?
I'll just share, we've had great luck with the events, and unfortunately, our good luck came to an end with the most recent event. There was a lot of damage in the park, and so staff and others are working through that. You should all be aware of that.
Was that 515 Alive?
Yeah, and it was not so much about, the concert, it was about just the rain that came
The mud.
after the event was over, and so a lot of people left when the conditions really weren't appropriate for leaving, where they drove on, they went off concrete, and so staff is rebounding from that appropriately, and the proper accounting will take place, I shall say.
There will be some bills.
There will be some bills, so.
Oh, Graham, are you there? I think he was disconnected.
Is he communicating with you there, right?
Yeah, I just noticed.
Oh, he's also communicating with me.
I don't normally look at my phone during board
I
meetings.
usually have it on silent, which it is. Give him a call back.
We're almost done.
Hello, Graham, with us again?
Thank you.
We just had an update on the Waterworks Park Foundation Board about the underpass or the connector and about the 515 Alive. I don't know when you got disconnected. Did you have anything that you wanted to add on either that or the Botanical Garden Board?
No, I have nothing to report on the Botanical Garden Board, and if you haven't done finance and audit yet, I'll let Ted do that. It might be easier than me trying to do it.
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah, we did that.
Perfect.
I do think Laura has an update for us from a government outreach
Yes,
perspective.
I do want to make available invitations for our Citizens Water Academy. You can have copies of these if you are out at your next neighborhood gathering or a dinner party and want to whip one of these out to some interested people that would make great candidates for our Citizens Water Academy. Please do so. You can grab these. We already have a great lineup of candidates that have applied, so staff's job is gonna be very difficult, bringing these down. We have over 30 applications and our max is about 20 to 24. So we're excited, it's a good problem to have. So stay tuned when we officially announce the third class of our Citizens Water Academy. And then a bulk of my time this month has been working with USDA, Natural Resource Conservation Services, or NRCS. In the 2018 Farm Bill, it was designated that 10% of funding to NRCS goes to source water protection, specifically to areas that drain to a drinking water utility intake. So in Iowa, that could equate up to $7.5 million in 1 year. So it's a lot of money, and it's another good problem to have to spend that money. It's gonna be difficult to spend that money in some of these areas. But I worked successfully to get the Raccoon River watershed and the Upper Des Moines River watershed as eligible areas, and then 3 separate HUC 12s within those large river basins as priority zones that have the highest nitrate loading coming out of those HUC 12s. So those areas will be eligible first for funding to spend the funding for conservation practices that ultimately affect drinking water sources. So good news there. And then the final thing, in your memo, I wrote if you could respectfully hold Tuesday, November 12th before the Finance and Audit Committee in November. We may have a little anniversary celebration for our 100-year anniversary. We'll invite board members, media, and past board members in celebration of the 100-year anniversary.
We'll have cake.
We'll send out an invite for that, I
Yeah.
assume, Laura, so it can be on everyone's calendar. Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, Tad?
A couple of things from me. First, let you know, related to the PFAS contamination at the airport. I think I've shared with you before that staff, Mike and Kyle specifically, are working with the Guard and the airport and the DNR to develop a testing plan for evaluating existence of those contaminants in the groundwater here near our infiltration gallery. The DNR has really stepped up and agreed to do that sampling, take the samples using a geoprobe that they have. The Guard has agreed to pay for the samples. That sampling plan has been developed. The DNR was actually in the park last week doing some spotting of where those samples are going to be taken. And this week, gentlemen, next week?
Wednesday and Thursday, they will be doing the soil borings, the 6 soil borings.
So what happens if, with this issue, if the Guard takes over their water?
They're unrelated, I would say.
So it's not like something now becomes private instead of public and?
No, the water mains are water supply infrastructure. This contamination is a
Okay.
result of firefighting and stormwater runoff. I would say those two things are unrelated.
Okay.
So we're pleased with the progress there. Here in a few weeks, we should have some idea of whether there is reason for any additional concern. We're still not seeing these contaminants in our finished drinking water, which is a positive, but we want to know if they're moving towards us, and if they are, we want to do something about that. So stay tuned. The other item I will share today is a utility goals update. You will recall that we had 3 goals this year, one related to recordable injuries, one related to reducing the amount of lime that we use for softening, and one related to succession planning because of the IPERS vesting that's going to happen at the end of 2020. From a safety perspective, our goal was half of the national average for utilities our size, which would be not more than 6 recordable injuries. At the time of the writing of this memo, we were at 3. Regretfully, we are now at 4. We had one. But 3 compares favorably to where we were a year ago, which was 11 at this time. Significantly better than last year, but we're approaching our goal. Being at 4 in August means I think we can say we're on track, but we need to be vigilant and continue to work with the staff and encourage safe work practices. So we're working hard on that. We are on track. The lime use goal, the goal there was to reduce lime use by 5%, or about 100 pounds of lime per million gallons. We are not on track to meet that goal. We are in fact actually using a little bit more lime than the 3-year average instead of using less, but ironically, a big part of the reason is that we're using so much gallery water this year. We've had high river levels, a lot of gallery water, which is our best water to treat, the best quality we have to deal with, but it's a little harder to begin with than the river water. And so because we're using so much gallery water, it's making it very difficult to meet this goal as written. When we compare to other years where we've used similar amounts of gallery water, we're actually doing very well, but that's not the way the goal is written. It's written based on the 3-year average. We are not on track to meet that goal. We likely won't meet it, but we're going to continue trying, and we're going to continue trying to use lime as wisely as possible, as we typically do, but we're focusing pretty hard on that this year. And the third thing was succession planning, and really the succession planning revolves around this, the fact that we're going to vest in IPERS at the end of 2020. There were a group of people who've been waiting until we got there so that they could retire and have their IPERS pension. There's another group of people who we fear have a misconception that once they vest in IPERS, as long as they meet the rule of 85 in the Des Moines Water Works pension plan, that they can just retire and collect both pensions, which they cannot. The way we moved into IPERS, basically until you're 65, you cannot collect your IPERS pension. So there's really less opportunity for people to retire early than there used to be. And we're really focusing on educating and making sure people understand that the last thing we want is for someone to retire and expect they're going to collect both those checks and then they can't. So Doug and his staff have coordinated a couple of mandatory meetings for people who are eligible under the Waterworks pension plan to retire, but also have an IPERS component there. I got to attend one of those meetings last week. They were very informative. Had folks from Principal there, folks from our staff helping. And we're also continuing to work on our apprenticeship program. Jenny and her folks have worked hard to try to get an apprenticeship program set up in distribution, which should help us retool and get people up to speed quickly once we do get to the end of 2020. We are going to have a number of people retire. We hope it's all people who are prepared and understand what they're retiring into. That's our big goal. I think we're going to accomplish that. But then we all are also going to have some holes to fill. And we're looking at being prepared for that too. So that goal is on track, I would say. Any questions about the goals or where we stand?
We may want to look next year at if we're going to continue to have a line reduction goal to put it in relation to the water.
Wording is important.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Did we produce more water or less than last year? How?
Kyle, can you,
I've not looked at the numbers, I'm assuming it's less than last year, but last I looked, we were behind schedule, but
And then our total line was more, not just per gallon, it was more.
we are using more lime per million gallons this year than we did last year.
Okay, it
But
was,
just about 40 pounds per million gallons more,
okay, it's per gallon then.
per million
Per
gallons.
million.
We're using a little bit more per million gallons. Whether the total is more or less, I'm not absolutely sure because I don't know where we stand today.
But it was just for this plant where we treated.
And
Moffett.
McMullen, yes, those are the two lime softeners. The McMullen plant is actually doing a little better, based on the goal, because it always treats groundwater, and so when you average the last 3 years, you don't have that difference. Here, because of the phenomenal gallery yield we've seen this year, we're having a challenge, which we produce so much more water here that will outweigh the fact that we're making the goal at McMullen. We likely are not gonna meet that goal, but if we have it again, Diane, we'll take your advice and write it a little more.
We want to be measuring the right thing.
Yeah, we do. They are doing a nice job of maintaining the pH in the appropriate place and lower seasonally. That was the real point, is let's have a lower pH seasonally when we don't need that high pH. If you run your pH really high, and this is only water nerds care about this, but if you run your pH really high, it makes your process very accommodating, and it smooths out a lot of the rough edges if you do anything wrong. But if you run it lower, you have to be very exact. We're trying to run it a little lower to save that money, make us feel a little more exact. I think Kyle and his folks will.
From that standpoint, we have somewhat achieved what we were after. It is a change in behavior.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
exactly, that's why
That's
you
true.
have goals and measures.
Absolutely.
That's it for me.
Okay, do you have anything else you want to point out in those items there? No, they're that are part of the contract
No.
status spread, okay.
Unless there are questions, the
Okay.
status spreadsheet and the lien certification are as much.
Yeah.
Dave, you wanted to bring something up
Yeah.
before we adjourn?
Yeah, I wonder if maybe for next meeting, Ted, could we have an item, the board, we need more work.
Need more work?
I think we have 2 employees and we, like review your employment every year and everything. And I think that our legal counsel is our employee. And I don't remember us ever reviewing work or discussing anything. Because when I got on here, I saw in the board packet that we hired the legal. And I asked McMullen, and he said that we hired our legal staff. And as I understand it, and should we do
Phyllis, I
something
think
or
if you
have an
wanna-
RFP or?
Rick, do you want to talk about the status of your firm as our legal counsel? You're not our employee.
No, we're a independent.
No, I mean, we're in charge of hiring.
Sure, the board selects counsel.
You're not our direct employee, no.
No.
The board selected me as the board's counsel as a result of an RFP process back in, I think it's 1980 something, maybe 90 something. And I've been acting in that role ever since. I have, from time to time, had reviews and comments from the CEO and general manager, but there's never been a board review of legal counsel's activity that I'm aware of.
So what are you asking?
So you're suggesting like a annual review of, or not an annual review, because
Well,
it
after
hasn't been an annual, but
16 or 20 years. I think most places have been, sometime they review things and maybe putting out RFP or.
Is the point, Dave, that you'd like to provide some feedback on performance?
Or you'd like to know
Certainly
the
we could-
process and how
Well,
we do it and.
If everything else we check on. And I don't know that all the new board members even know that. You know, it's in our handbook, but there's a lot of things in our handbook.
We
So
can
Dave, are you suggesting, and because I would support this, if maybe we have an agenda item to review how we've hired legal counsel and, you know, provide some feedback and then make a decision if there is one to be made about next steps? Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, you have a good way with words. Yep. Thank you, Graham. Yes.
That makes sense to me. I mean, let's have if we can, at a future board meeting, have a kind of a review of where we are with that contract and how it's renewed, and make sure we all understand that. And then we can, you know, there's maybe nothing that's maybe not at that agenda is a decision point, but then if we decided we need to do something, we could.
Thank you, Graham.
Okay. Anything else that we need to take up at this point? Not, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for putting up with me on the phone. I appreciate it.
You're coming
Thank
across
you.
loud and clear.
Thank you for calling in, Jeremy, appreciate it.
Have a good night, guys.